So one of the things that's been quite concerning to me thinking about this second Trump administration is that Donald Trump is not really governing like he has a care in the world that midterms are coming up in just a little over a year. He's kind of acting like he doesn't even need to worry about the midterms. Maybe he's got a plan to subvert a free and fair election in 2026 and maybe even 2028. Or maybe he's just an addled old man who knows he's done in 2028, and therefore he's trying to jam through as much as possible right now and then not even worry about the 2026 midterms. Not exactly where the truth lies there, but nevertheless, I do think it's pretty important that we keep an eye on just how unpopular he is becoming with the American people. Not because I think that Donald Trump is going to be responsive to these negative polling numbers, but because we can harness these negative polling numbers and we can start building our coalition. We can start getting people out onto the street and fighting back against this wannabe authoritarian regime. And so I want to go ahead and take a look at some recent polling. We're going to look at his overall polling, but then even with MAGA voters and Republican voters, he's actually starting to lose some ground there as well. If you guys do appreciate my work, please do remember to subscribe.
Brand new polling from NBC News shows that more voters disapprove of President Trump than approve of him by double digits. He's underwater by 10 points. And this is interesting. Among people who like Donald Trump, who really, really like him, they're starting to not like him as much anymore. Among Republicans, the percentage of them who say they are most enthusiastic about Trump, they're thrilled by Trump, that number of Republicans has dropped 7 points since the last time this poll was taken in April. Even among self-identified, not just Republicans, but self-identified MAGA supporters, the percentage of them who call themselves thrilled with Trump has dropped 9 points just since April. People who really like him don't even like him as much anymore.
I mean, I was pretty surprised by that. Even MAGA voters have seen a 9% drop just since April. I mean, Donald Trump, he's an unpopular figure no matter which way you slice it. He's probably the most unpopular president that this country has ever seen. But to see his own voters, even Republicans and MAGA voters, starting to sour on Dear Leader, that's quite incredible. It's quite incredible. It's probably because Donald Trump is engaged in all of this insane shit that most of the American people are just not interested in. So I want to go ahead and take a look at Donald Trump's kind of main objectives right now. We know he's trying to pass that big, beautiful bill through the Senate and the House. It is an absolutely despicable bill. And then we also know that one of his main objectives right now is to instill fear in Democratic power centers. He's sending the military, he's sending active duty troops to the streets of California. And so we're going to go ahead and look at that polling here as well. But first up, here's Donald Trump and his big, beautiful bill. Where are people on that particular topic?
Mega bill.
You know, I'm really surprised when I look at polling data. I look at it every day. But the amount of disapproval for this bill, holy cow, my goodness gracious. And, you know, you mentioned the KFF poll. We're talking about 29 points underwater on the net favorable rating. But that matches the Quinnipiac University poll from last week when it was 26 points underwater. Oh, my God, you need Greg Louganis to get that far underwater. And, I mean, we're talking about a negative 41 net favorability rating among independents in the center of the electorate. You rarely ever see pieces of legislation or proposed pieces of legislation as unpopular as this. But here you see it in two polls, 26 points underwater and 29 points underwater. No good.
I mean, that is absolutely insane. He is 26 to 29 points underwater overall. And then with independents, he's negative 41 on the big disastrous bill. And it probably should come as a shock to nobody, really, when you're going after Medicaid, when you're going to wipe 10 million people off of their health insurance, and then you're going to ban some of those people from even buying their own insurance from the ACA exchange. You're going to be unpopular. I mean, this bill is going to be an absolute disaster for the American people. You are basically robbing the poor to give to the rich. It is a wealth transfer from the poorest among us to the richest among us. So whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, you're probably not going to be down with that because, as most of you guys know, most of us are not in the top 10, 5, or 1%. And you're going to cut programs from those folks who are in the bottom 80% to give to the wealthiest among us, to give them more tax breaks. It is absolutely insane. And like I said, even among Republicans, this big disastrous bill is unpopular.
I mean, there is a large chunk of the Republican Party that is not in favor of this bill. So this is the GOP with an unfavorable view of this bill. And what we see here is, look at this, 23% are opposed, have an unfavorable rating of the big, beautiful bill. Now, to put that in some perspective, Donald Trump's unfavorable rating with the GOP is 9%. So this is more than double. All of a sudden, you're taking a huge chunk of that MAGA base, of that Republican base that is turned against this bill. It is not just Elon Musk. It is not just Ron Johnson, the Senate Republican from Wisconsin. It is a large chunk of the Republican base, is large, double the percentage that have an unfavorable view of Donald Trump, have an unfavorable view of the big, beautiful bill. And I will note that in the KFF poll, the unfavorable view, get this, 36%. You rarely ever see anything that Donald Trump backs get that high of an unfavorable view among Republicans. But here it is with the big, beautiful bill.
Yeah.
Again, it's just absolutely wild. Most Republicans just fall in line behind Donald Trump. They support his agenda. But then you look at this big despicable bill, who's going to cut $200 to $300 billion out of food assistance that is going mainly to red states. You're going to cut, 10 to 15 million people off of their health insurance. A lot of those people are in red states. I mean, what do we expect? You are literally hurting the people who helped you get elected. And you are doing it in the most brazen way possible. It is so disgusting that we are seeing this huge transfer of wealth from the bottom half to the top 10% of people in this country. It is absolutely disgusting, and I'm glad to see that even Trump's own base are starting to turn against him on this big despicable bill. Now, does that mean that this thing isn't going to pass? Probably not. Unfortunately, the bill went over to the Senate, and they even made those Medicaid cuts even deeper. It is absolutely shameful what we are seeing from our representatives in Congress right now. Let's go ahead and turn to the LA protests. As most of you know, Donald Trump deployed the National Guard. I think it was 2,000. Then he deployed 700 active duty Marines. Then he sent another 2,000 National Guard to the streets of LA. And this was a way for Donald Trump to show a force, go into these blue power centers, as he called them, and try to quell the violence that didn't really exist. Now, were there protests that have these little pockets of violence here and there? Yes. But this was not anything close to the LA riots. This was not anything close to the 2020 George Floyd riots. It was nowhere near any of that. And even though the police said that we've got everything under control, even though Karen Bass, the mayor of LA, came out, even though Gavin Newsom came out and said everything is fine, we've got things under control, Donald Trump went forward with deploying the National Guard and the active duty Marines anyway. So how do the American people feel about that?
Where are we? Well, I think we can say that Donald Trump has lost the political battle when it comes to what has happened out in Los Angeles. Donald Trump's net approval rating on the Los Angeles process. Look at this. Overall, way underwater at minus 15 points. How about among independents or those who don't identify with either major party? Way even lower. Look at that, minus 24 points on the net approval rating. And of course, this is happening on what should be one of Donald Trump's, in fact, the best issue for Donald Trump, immigration. And yet, when it comes to these Los Angeles protests, 15 points underwater overall and 24 points underwater among independents. No good.
Yeah, that is pretty damning. This is what you get when you got a president who lives in his own conspiracy bubble. He wanted to create this story. He wanted to make things appear as though they were just out of control in California. So he leapfrogged right over Gavin Newsom. He took into account none of the local officials, none of the local police, and he went ahead and he deployed the National Guard and active duty military. Anyway, what did he expect? I mean, it is so damn frustrating that Donald Trump creates this alternate reality and then he tries to force everybody to live inside that reality. And then when it goes up to the courts, a lot of the times it gets knocked down, which it initially did. But then an appeals court said that Donald Trump did have the authority to deploy how he did, which is just an absolutely insane ruling to me. But that is kind of where that issue stands. But if we take a look at the overall picture as far as immigration and, how they are carrying out their arrests, he's even underwater there, which, again, is his best issue.
And I think this sort of paints a picture for you in understanding why Donald Trump's net approval rating on the Los Angeles protests are as low as they are. Take a look. Trump and immigrant arrests. He's gone too far. That's the winner here, 49%. Not too far, only 40%. So you got a 9-point lead here. And again, among those independents or other category, you see 51% of them say Trump's gone too far. And what's so important to note is that this poll was taken after the Los Angeles protests started. So this takes into account everything that's gone on in Los Angeles. At this particular point, if the protesters' idea was to focus the attention on Donald Trump and bring attention to his immigration policies and bring attention to the arrests that have been occurring of immigrants, it seems to me that those protests have been successful, because you see here, 49% say Trump's gone too far when it comes to the immigrant arrests, compared to just 40% who say he's not gone too far. And you don't have to be a mathematical genius to know 49% is larger than 40%.
So even on Donald Trump's best issue, he is underwater. Now, we didn't get a clear majority of the American people who said he went too far, but it was a clear plurality. 49% versus 40% think Donald Trump have gone too far when it comes to this whole immigration thing. Like we've been talking about in many other videos, most of the American people do not like when you have masked ICE agents rolling into neighborhoods and snatching people off the streets just because Stephen Miller has a hard-on for rounding up as many black and brown folks as humanly possible. Turns out that most people believe that if you've been here in this country undocumented for 10 or 20 years and you're not getting in any trouble and you're paying your taxes and you're contributing to your community, most of the American people think that you should be able to stay in this country, which is not a crazy thing to think. Most American people are compassionate. Now, of course, we've got the MAGA lunatics who are going to follow Donald Trump to the end of the earth. They're cheering this shit on. But when you take a step back and you look at the overwhelming majority of Americans, they do not like the idea of these mass deportations. And more importantly, they do not like how Donald Trump is trying to carry out his immigration policies. Like I said, Stephen Miller is an outlier compared to the rest of America. Most of America is more compassionate than the Stephen Millers of the world. And unfortunately, he is the guy who is running the immigration policy right now. So I do think it's important that we keep an eye on these polls. Even if Donald Trump is governing, like he doesn't even care that the midterms are coming up. Like I said, he could have a plan to try to subvert our elections. He could be an addled old man who really doesn't care, or he could just be an idiot who is not thinking that far ahead, and he's going to get absolutely slaughtered electorally in the midterms, and that would be a happy day for America. Like I said, I'm not exactly sure where the truth lies here, but we should keep an eye on this stuff, because we can use this as propellant to fight back against this wannabe authoritarian regime. We can gather more people into the coalition. We can get people out to the No Kings protest. We can get people out to the streets and fighting back and try to make it to that 3.5% threshold where change could actually happen under this wannabe authoritarian regime. I think it is super, super important that we keep an eye on this stuff and we can learn where we can start picking off voters to add to our coalition. Because as I continue to say, most of the American people are good, honest people. They have compassion for other human beings. And that is not what this administration, that is not what this MAGA movement is currently offering to the American people. So I will leave it there for now, guys. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We are trying to build something here on the left that adequately pushes back against the right-wing media ecosystem that just launders all of this performative nonsense for Donald Trump day in and day out. So if you do like what I do here, please do remember to smash that subscribe button. Of course, it is free. And if you guys want to see Donald Trump having an absolute meltdown after he carried out that Iran strike and then figured out or started to learn that it wasn't as effective as he hoped it would be, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Reporters are saying they have never seen Donald Trump this pissed. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.